You're on,
Okay.
and it's presenting.
You're on too.
Oh, cool.
Say hi.
Hello.
Okay.
So, just make sure that when you're switching on your computer, you're also switching
Okay.
through.
All right. Cool. Thank you very much.
Enjoy your class, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Aha. And then we were 10.
Jeez.
Hey, 10's good. It's slowly becoming the 20%. And that's what it will be. It won't be the 300. It'll be 20%, which will actually gravitate towards the concept of getting real and making sure that everybody's kind of in tune with what the task at hand is. So how many people, just before we start, how many people have been to the class before? So we got 6 of 10. All right, so it's a little bit different than the other classes, the Ignites of the world, the classes where there's a manual and there's this is more kind of what the namesake is. This is kind of drilling down to how to actually be productive and how to actually make money in this extremely hard business. We kind of start off with just kind of a couple. Hopefully, I know how to do this. Does this work? Uh-oh. All right, so does anything work? Wait. No.
Point it to that thing. See what happens.
I mean, this is the thing, right?
I don't think so. Not for that. I don't think because he was ordering it. Well, let me go grab it.
We kind of have to have a presentation. All right, so maybe we're not doing the class yet. I'll speed it up to make sure it all lasts within the hour. Sorry, guys. This is the reality of getting real. I have no idea how the office works. I know how the real estate works, but just not any of this stuff. Does this work?
Is it on?
Wait. All right. Yeah. Like I said, I don't know how any of this stuff works. Thank you. All right. Now we're there. Okay. So why did I start the class? Lots of reasons. Some of you know this, some of you don't. I have a very I have a vested interest in the success of everybody here. I have a very small equity piece of this office, courtesy of the Waxman Group, and when we came together and when I joined Keller Williams, and then I really actually liked the concept of Keller Williams because it's a training company and it's constantly teaching, and people that are successful, even the most successful people, are constantly learning-based people. They never think they know it all. They just they strive for more, and that's kind of like at the heart of what this company is about. And if you are going to be successful in the company, you're going to constantly evolve and continue to want to learn, and for me, pay it forward because there's value in that as well. So. So what we do in this class, a little bit different, we kind of own the situation where we're at. So it kind of puts you in kind of accountability mode, and it kind of forces you to kind of get real with yourself as far as, where you are in terms of your business, and irrespective of the fact whether you like it or not, it's the reality today. Doesn't mean it has to be the reality in 20 minutes. Doesn't mean it has to be the reality tomorrow, but it's the reality now. So you don't have to opt in, but it's worth your while if you're going to be here and spend an hour doing this every 2 weeks to just kind of own it and figure out how you want to work on that, change it, whatever. So the bottom line is I always start and if you're tracking from the last 2 weeks, you basically get to monitor your own progress. I don't write anything down, but you know where you were 2 weeks ago, and if you were here in the first class, you know where you were 4 weeks ago. I knew where I was 4 weeks ago. I wasn't really thrilled with where I was 4 weeks ago. In terms of listings, I was kind of okay with it, but I wasn't good with it in terms of pendings or closings or anything like that. So, for me, Jay Caput, 16 years in the business. I have 15 listings now, 3 pending sales, and that's basically it. My business model, when things are good, I'm closing about 3 to 4 deals a month. But when things are not good, I have the same amount of listings, but I'm not closing things. Things aren't pending. Things aren't selling. So it forces me to have to get more listings. 2 weeks ago when we met, I had 12 listings. And basically, when I talked to my MAPS coach, we kind of figured out that, look, if the shift is really on, if there really is this shift that Gary Kelly talks about, and it's going to slowly drip and cause frustration and angst with realtors, and it's going to creep in ever so slowly, then the idea for me is that I have to kind of figure out how do I get back to 3 pendings or 3 closings a month. And the only way to do that is to get more listings, because I have to have a certain number of things closing, and obviously the ratio has to change. The shift affects everybody differently. For me, it's the number of things that go pending, because it's just a slower go. So for me to close the same and do volume and make the money that I like to make or that I'm used to making, then more things, I have to list more properties, because it's going to take the timeline for those things to actually go from listed to closed is longer. In a market where things are booming, you could list something and it goes pending, and you could have 1 listing and 3 days later it's pending, and then you're off to try and get another listing. In my situation, where things continuously take longer and longer to close, that ratio has to go up on the listing side. So everybody's at a different spot. I've been in the business for a long time. That's my metric, and that's where I know I have to get better with the number of listings. And then, so from your side, you're going to have to see where it falls for you, but you're only going to be able to see that if you measure it. So if you want to participate, you can raise your hand. We can go around the room. You can offer up, how long you've been in it, how many listings you have, how many pendings you have, and it kind of will let you guys kind of, get real with where you're at and kind of own where you're at, and then you can kind of, even if you had zeros across the board, by the time you come back 2 weeks from now, if you're really being intentional about it, it'll be a lot different in 2 weeks. So, anybody?
I have a question for you.
Yeah, man.
You work with buyers? Your team have buyers right now?
We work with anybody, but this isn't my team. This is me.
Okay.
When I'm reporting.
Okay. However, for you or your team, are you presently working with currently active buyers right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that help?
I know this is a listing conversation. I was just looking at that.
No. Yeah. I look. No. If you can, and listen. I do that because I'm a big proponent of controlling inventory. But if you have buyers, that counts too. I just am primarily a listing agent, but I don't stand on ceremony. If you want to work with 20 buyers, go ahead. I just don't want to work with 20 buyers. I don't want to drive around 20 buyers. That's just a personal thing. And I just feel like when you're in a market that is shifting, it's better to have the inventory. Okay? So who wants to stand up and be counted? Brian?
Brian Jones, 15 years in business. I have 1 active listing. I have 0 pending sales. Today's date is 10/24. When I look at my business, I find that it's cyclical from month to month. So in September, I closed 7 deals.
I saw that.
Because I
Congrats.
was so busy in September dealing with those deals that I never really got into lead generation.
Right.
Just getting going from here.
Yeah.
One listing I have, I did get from a call that expired, and I was able to get that. But then I also realized that although I've taken Bold, I don't do everything that I need to. That we've learned in Bold, I'm not consistent with it. I don't make 20 contacts. I'll make one contact, and try to run with that contact, and be like, okay, it's over. Instead of trying to do 20 and get one appointment and do everything. But the busier I get 1 month, I always know that there's going to be a cold winter coming because we're so busy and
Right.
do anything to replenish.
All right, well, listen, first of all, I really appreciate that share. And the other thing I wanted to tell you is that one of the classes that I'm planning on doing, not the next class, but the class coming up in 4 weeks, will be specifically about the pipeline, which is the thing that's the most damning in this profession. Because what happens is like what Brian said, is that you get so caught up in now business, you forget about the rest of the year. And that's the problem for realtors, sustainability. Anybody could, do a deal, and then if they haven't thought about the future, then it's feast or famine in this business. And so what happens is that you get so caught up in making sure that your deals are going to close, however many, especially if you're new to the business and you have one deal. You basically just center and focus solely on that deal. The problem with focusing solely on the deal is it could die and then you have no deals. If you have 7, like Brian has, then the chances of them all dying are very slim. But 1 or 2 could die and he still could have 5. But the difference is you're juggling so many of those deals, you're not focusing on any new business because you just want to make sure and land those home. The idea with the pipeline is that you have to time block to make sure that you're entertaining new business all the time, irrespective of how many deals you have. You could have 50 deals going on, but you need to make sure, almost like if you've ever been in the finance business, laddering out bonds and stuff, that there's something closing in January, February, March, April. When you talk to people, I know this is going off topic a little bit, but since Brian brought it up, if you ever talk to people that rely on municipal bonds to live and rely on income to live, okay? They invest in bonds, and the bonds mature monthly, okay? They actually go and make the bonds mature at different months so that they have income coming in every month. That's the goal when you're a realtor. When you're a realtor, you want to ladder things out so you have closings every month so that there's no feast or famine, no freak out, no emotional nonsense going on, no desperation, because it all comes out in tonality. It all comes out in your conversations. People see everything. If you have deals going on, you walk into listing presentations much more confident than if you have nothing going on. All right, so anybody else want to be countered?
Koji, been 6 years. I still, same like last 2 weeks ago, 1 pending that's closing tomorrow, 2 listings.
All right.
What I've been focusing on really in the past month, and those past 2 Terra 7 levels, it's really focusing on the database and having a plan. And it's not perfect every day, but I'm working on doing the activities that I should be doing every day and being purposeful and focused on that. So
yeah, and I mean, truthfully, to be honest with you, I read a lot, but I think 7 levels is probably one of the best things out there. And if you can be intentional about it and just do just even a little bit of it each day, it'll make a huge difference.
yeah, and thanks to that, I actually had a referral and had a listing appointment last Friday that we haven't signed yet. They were between, they're actually moving out of the country, but they're planning on coming back, so they weren't sure if they wanted to sell or just rent it out. So we had that meeting. It went okay. I think it could have gone better. I still need to work also on.
Look, the bottom line is that you gotta understand that the idea with time blocking and one-on-ones and cold calls and conversations is not that you have to earn the business. It's a win either way once you get on the phone because you're honing out conversations. You're figuring out how to talk to people. You're figuring out what never to say again. Okay, there's so much to glean from making sure you get on the phone, hop on the call, meet somebody one-on-one. it doesn't have to work out in your favor every time for you to walk away with winning. All right? Anyone else want to chime in?
For the current situation, or chime in on that?
Current situation.
Tara Carter, 4 years, 3 listings, 4 pending.
All right.
And I'm already having, I just got on the phone with my financial fit coach about an hour ago, and we did the math on my pendings, and this month will be a $70,000 month, and then I could essentially have 4 months to live off of if, God forbid, nothing else came in. I'm like, I can't think like that. I'm starting to freak out. I don't have any pendings closing in December.
Right.
Because I mean, if I set it my December and then cap renews in January, I capped last year in less than 3 months, and I've never done less than 6 months. So I can't do anything less than 3 months. I mean, yeah, I can't do anything more.
Okay, and so going based on what she just said, and I know this particular slide's taking a while, but this is all important. I feel there's some value add here. So what Tara said, and based on what Brian said, I'm going to make a comment that most successful agents, right, do that, which is why they're successful. Because they freak out even when things are really good, because they're constantly worried about what's coming. I am never really jumping up and doing cartwheels because I'm not really thinking about now. I'm thinking about later. Now is great. Oh yeah, we're closing this deal. We got this deal done. We just closed a deal in Heron Bay this morning. Great. It's almost like if you're a football fan, not that I'm a Patriots fan, but if you ever watch Bill Belichick, the guy never gets excited about anything. They could be up 100 points and be like,
you could be down 100.
Yeah, it's just, he's never satisfied. I'm not saying that's the way you want to live your life, but if you want to make sure that you're always grinding away and making something happen, that's more of the attitude that you have to have. The attitude that it's still not good enough, we could do better, we could do more. That if you grind like that and you get used to grinding like that, then you start to understand why level heads prevail in this business and that you don't need to celebrate crazily when you have a big win, and you don't need to get down on yourself when you're not doing that well. You just got to grind it out and understand it's a marathon.
I think you just have a little celebration, okay, what's next?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Next. No one? Scott?
In the business 7 years, 5 with Keller Williams. I have 1 pending, 2 listings, and I'm working with 2 active buyers.
Good. Anyone else want to jump in?
Jay Everett. I've been in the business about 4 years. I have 2 pendings and no listings right now. But I wanted to mention that I'm grateful for this class. I came in the second session, and I've incorporated, what we've learned, and I've been trying to make these marginal gains. While I have been making marginal gains, I've been focusing on the grind. Getting up an hour earlier. I can't make that 5 a.m. joint, but maybe one day.
Baby steps, man. Baby steps. Tara's at 3 a.m. right now. Soon Tara won't be sleeping at all.
So I'm seeing an improvement in my business just from these marginal gains.
Oh yeah, I mean, and momentum is huge. Because once you see a little bit of success, you don't want to go backwards, and then everything just compounds.
Wayne Hockra, 15 years in mortgage, 6 years in real estate, 1 pending, 1 listing, and now the pending is getting crazy with a rental up in Wellington. She just flipped it 3 times, never doing another one. It's amazing when things get rolling or things die, but like Jason, I never get worried about now, only because I'm still living on money from the mortgage business. So it's not a money issue, it's like Tara's always nervous and what's coming up next and when's next. I get it when I get it, and I don't seem to push myself as much as I should, and I don't, for a whole host of other reasons. So that's my story.
All right, well, maybe just start pushing a little bit,
Okay, not 5 a.m.
5:30.
5:30.
My name is Ray Murado. I am just under 3 years. I have zeros across the board. Unfortunately, my struggle is the fact that when I get business, I feel like my whole entire life is consumed by it. And I have a hard time with a work-life balance. I had 2 really successful months in the beginning of the year that scared the living crap out of me, to be very honest with you. I'm gonna just be so vulnerable. I felt like I couldn't be in the now. I'm very aware of the present moment. I mean, of course I want to set myself up for a better future, but when I'm in a moment with my friends and my family, which are my #1 priority, and I can't be present with those people, it was hard for me. I don't know if it's just the systems that I haven't been able to implement, if I, of course, you love the reward, you love when you get that check, it's worth it, but those 2-3 months of my life were so intense and like, to the point that I'm scared to get business again. It's honestly what has been like, it's hindering me.
Well, listen, look, I appreciate the share. I can tell you from studies that I've read, and obviously you're living proof by your admission, that there are people that fear success a little bit, that they let that fear get in their way, and they're averse to change, even if it's in a good way. They just like what they like, and they're in a comfort zone. You present as somebody that doesn't like to get out of their comfort zone.
I don't mind getting out of my comfort zone at all, and in a lot of areas of my life. I actually strive off of getting out of my comfort zone. I'm a singer. It's just kind of.
Here it comes. It's the singer. Sing your deals.
What are you scared of when it comes to real estate?
The fact that that's all people talk to me about. Anybody finds out I'm a realtor, all they want to do is talk about interest rates, and that's great and all. Don't get me wrong, that's how you get more business. But I feel like that my whole life, all encompassing is real estate. And I feel like the most successful realtors, that's what it is. That's their whole entire business life. And it scares me a little bit.
Does it scare you because you feel like you don't know enough in order to have an educated conversation about it?
I guess so.
Do you feel like there's anything that you could do to be more educated about what's going on in the market?
That's true too, but I just feel like that's the first go-to conversation all the time.
You know, what you could do is you switch the conversation by asking another question.
Or tell them you're a singer.
It's all about the singing.
Anyone else?
That's what makes her happy.
I mean, I just started, and I came from teaching.
Yeah.
So I came from a profession that already you are the giver constantly. I have 2 kids. So I kind of feel like what she's feeling, where I'm coming in here with an open mind. I know you have to work hard, you got to get your own business, but I kind of feel like that too. I kind of feel like some of the classes I've been taking, talking to some of you guys are like so like just out here kicking ass.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where I just feel like sometimes it's like it could be a little overwhelming.
Fascinating. Overwhelming is a negative word.
You're not allowed to use overwhelming when you sit with Tara. There's like there's rules, and then there's a whole other set of rules. So if she leaves, feel free to say whatever you want.
So I feel like it's a little fascinating.
Listen, it is, but if you,
smiling.
But I gotta.
No, but that's my personality. But I feel like I've come in more with this open mind, where I'm just like, I want to put my family first, and I know this is something you have to work, but I'm only by my own money. I'm trying to figure out that balance as well.
You'll figure it out.
I know, but I kind of see like where you're coming from, where it's like, my kids are young, 6 and 3. I don't want to lose that time with them. And I know one of the other, I forgot who it was, said it perfectly, and this has been my mindset. It's like, I don't want to give my kids Xbox 360s or Xbox One, whatever the heck they're at. I want to give experiences. So that is my goal with real estate, because obviously with teaching, everybody knows you can't do that. But at the same time, I do feel like I want to find that balance. Like,
right, and I'll tell you from experience that you have to find the balance, and the way to find the balance is by being very intentional with your time. There's too many people that basically blame a lack of balance on having to work all the time. But how intentional are they when they're working? Okay, if I say to you, time block for 2 hours. That doesn't mean 2 hours and go have a coffee. It means 2 hours of intense focus and then do whatever you got to do. You know, most people that get in that situation where they feel like they have to make a choice are not being intentional enough with their time. That's the reality. When you get more intentional with your time and figure out, you know what, I really want to time block and give X number of days, hours to my kids, and I don't want to miss these young years. But in order to do that and to do that well, and to do that the way I want to do it, and to give them everything I want to give them, this is where I need to focus on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, Friday. From this time to this time, this is when I'm going to drill down and make my money and focus on real estate. The other times, because I have drilled down and done this, now I can take this time and do what I want with my family. The people that basically lollygag around and go, yeah, I'm here, I'm in the office, I'm time blocking, I'm on the MLS for 6 hours doing nothing. Whatever it is that they claim they're doing, we all know whether they're being intentional with their time or not, okay? And that's the truth that you have to kind of admit to yourself. Are you focusing? You know, if you are not, then it's not a game changer. It just means focus more. Get better. Marginal gains. You don't have to right the ship in 2 seconds and go from 0 to 100. But staying at 0 is not going to help you. Going from 0 to 1 is great. 1 to 2, great. 2 to 3, great. 0 to 0, no.
I'll share kind of my story.
Lots of kids.
And I'm not saying this, you guys have heard this before, it's not to impress you, it's to impress upon you that I've been where you're at, I return to where you're at, and incorporating what Jason's saying with regard to intentionality and focus, you can do everything. I have 3 boys, 4, 9, and 12. I've been on the ALC, I'm a director of the foundation here for the Keller Williams Pearl Springs Cares Foundation. I was president, this is all in the last few years. I was president of the PTO at my temple. I coached 2 baseball teams. My wife works full-time. I have 3 boys in baseball, 3 different schools. It's nuts.
I'm now tired.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
And it's, you're never in balance. You're balancing. So what I did was stepped away from the ALC. However, now I'm running, not running, but I'm a director and very involved in the foundation and a couple other community initiatives associated with Stoneman Douglas. So I said no to some things to open up this schedule because that's what I needed to do to say no, yet yeses crept in there that had nothing to do with business, all right? And I realized that that's my life, and it's important in my heart. I'm not giving up what's in my heart. I'm using that networking and that communication to drive my business. I have a mastery coach that is helping me create business from what I love to do and merge the two. And it's a challenge. And what needs to be done is, you don't all of a sudden have this hole because I said no to the ALC and I said no to something else, and it's all of a sudden like, wow, this is great now I can focus on real estate.
Something else creeps in.
That doesn't happen. Something else creeps in, and guess what creeps in again? My heart, and not really real estate directed, right? So what you need to do when you need to do it is, first of all, you time block that time with your kids. I will be at the baseball game today even though we have a partners meeting at 5 o'clock, right? I will be I'll be putting Orion in the bath after the baseball game as well, because my wife did that for me when I had a meeting yesterday. All right, so you block your time with the kids and those other things, and then you have to be super focused, intentional on what you're doing. Now, do I slip up and I say, I know what, this Thursday's killed, I gotta make up something Friday? Yeah, I do. But that's where it is. That's where you get your life back, with that focus and efficiency. And it's amazing what happens when you get busy with work, how you're able to say no to the other stuff, or even better prioritize what you're looking for. Because right now, it's kids and I'm overwhelmed and everything else like that, and I'm just, and what is it?
Scott's
But
not
no,
doing anything wrong.
I'm using that on purpose that way, right? So overwhelmed, I can't do this and everything else like that. I'm just going to say, do you have any deals? Do you have any pending? Do you have any buyers? Do you have any listings?
No, I just.
Okay, it's amazing what happens when you get that type of busy, how much you actually focus and free up on the other thing. It's such a hard concept that once you dive in and get busy, then you have to focus. You have to get the kids lunches. You have to get the kids in the bath, and you have to deal with your clients, and you have to do more business and everything else like that. It's amazing.
You find more time and make more
Yep.
time. And being new in the business and a teacher, and your kids are your priority, that make them the priority and put everything else around it. You know, when they're home, you need the dinner time and bedtime, and then start doing your work and your videos and lead generating or whatever it is when they're asleep or they're away at school. So you don't feel like you're depriving the children just for this.
Yeah.
No, make them the priority. And what Scott's saying, the time blocking for everything else will naturally come on board, and you'll be able to find it and do it more efficiently. Because the last thing you want to do is feel like you're making the kids deprived because of a new endeavor. Keep them the priority, and then block it all around that.
Let me just add one thing, just because we're on this subject, and I want to just make sure you're aware of one thing. How many of you guys have gone to Bold? Okay, so pretty much everyone. So let me just tell you that when you go to Bold, you know, they impress upon you kind of this language of real estate, what not to say, what to say, how to say it, okay? And one of the things that people get caught up with a lot is the idea of and instead of but, okay? So as it applies to you, okay, and as it applies to you, Ray, the idea of and is not just supposedly this word that you substitute for the word but also to encompass, when you are intentional, that it's not and or, it's and. So you can do both. You can do the best job for your kids, be with your kids, and have a career worth having, okay? There's always the and part if you do it correctly. You could have the singing and the real estate. You don't have to make a choice between both. If you want to do it and you want to be intentional about it, you can have both. And you can explain it in a way that either is going to resonate with people or it's not. But that's the true you, and that's who you want to be, and that's who you should be. You know, but I wouldn't be apologizing or trying to say something different about it. This is it. I do this and this. I'm good at both. If you want to talk to me all day about real estate, that's great. I might shut you down in 5 minutes. But if you want to talk to me about singing, I'll do that, whatever. But you got to dictate, but you got to be intentional about your day and doing both if you really want to do both. Maybe you don't. But when you come to that conclusion, you'll come to it. But if you really want to do both, you can.
And Ray, you got at least 200 guerrilla agents in this office you could reach out to and say, I need some help or an explanation or help me get my emotions in check.
Does anybody else want to proffer up the current situation? Or are we...
Okay. So this is my first time here.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks. So my name is Valerie Krasnik. Okay, how many years in business is a very complicated question for me. So I'll just tell you my long story in a short version.
Okay.
Okay.
You got 8 seconds.
So, you have all day?
6.
No. Okay.
Okay.
So, technically, I got my license in 2004. So, technically, it's been 15 years.
Uh-huh.
But.
And
whatever. So. I've been both many times to say whatever to that.
She's been impending for 20 years.
No. So I joined the business because my parents have been in the real estate and property management business for since 1989. Okay, so it was kind of whatever. So my father was the broker Century 21 a long time ago, and then he opened up his own office. So I started with him. And he gave me all the leads. I never had to do any prospecting. He's like, yeah, here's a client, and I would just work it, and that's great. 2009 came, and my husband got a federal job, and we got moved to Texas, and I was there for 6 years. While all this market crash was happening, I missed it, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And then I came back in 2013. And my father changed the company to solely property management, which I came back and I started helping him with that, but I didn't like it that much. So I said, okay, well, I'm going back to real estate. I'm going on my own because I can't do real estate in a property management company. It just didn't go well. So that's kind of where I was. So I really got into real estate really back in 3 years ago.
And
Okay, so I have right now 0 listings and I have 2 pending sales.
All right.
Today is October 24th.
And that was the short version.
Yeah.
You know, I gotta ask you, are you related to Mike Chilanga? Okay. Anybody else? Nobody? Bueller? Anyone? All right.
Yeah.
I'll go. My name's Carlos, and I've been in the business. Well, I got the license in 2013. And,
You see what you've started here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
2013. Right now, I have no listings, 1 pending. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
I'm Gonzalo, and when I was 7, so I showed up real estate, and I got my license 4 years ago. 5 active listings, no pending. By the way, it's getting better every week that I come here. It's just getting better.
Good. I appreciate that. I'm glad it's working out.
Gonzalo say he
Not
has a
that you
listing?
need to improve.
What?
Huh?
Okay.
5 listings?
5 listings.
Well, that just got us into like 10 because this whole room didn't have 5 listings.
It's good. Anyone else? Enrique?
My name's Enrique. I've been here for a year and a month now, and I just have 1 listing coming soon, no pending.
Anyone else before we move on?
All right, my name's Jim Whitaker. I've been in the business since 2007. I'm licensed in 2 other states, in Georgia and South Carolina, and I've got 0 listings, 0 pending sales. I've been doing real estate in Florida about 6 months, well, almost 8 months now or something. But I just want to come to this to get real, and I've been a top producer before, but right now my mindset's not right.
Well, we'll get it right. You know, I mean, just take this opportunity to listen. The first thing that you got to do when you really dial in and drill down here is that you got to own it. And most people will make every excuse in the book not to own it. You're owning. There's no judgment here. You're owning it, and we're moving on. We're getting better. There's, the good news is 0 and 0. It's not getting worse. Now we're just getting better. Now you owned it, and now you say, hey, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to have zeros. I want to get better. What do I need to do to get better? That may not translate to 1, 2, 3 listings 2 weeks from now, but it might translate to 10 new contacts and 10 people talking you up about listings, and more people on the phone that you're talking to you about real estate and talking you up to other people. And that's how this game is played, because the idea that you're just going to talk to a bunch of people and they're going to list their properties with you, that's not how it goes. The idea is that you're going to talk to enough people, and those people are going to bring you up in conversations, and the listings and the contacts that you make are not necessarily going to be with the people that you actually talk to, but people that they talked to, that somehow got your name, that you were interwoven into that conversation. That's how you're going to end up getting in front of these people. And by virtue of the person that you originally spoke to is going to be that person that was the liaison to who you talked to. 1,000,000 times I've been in a situation where I've gone on a listing presentation, okay? And the person that has a calendar on the refrigerator is a different agent, okay? Where you have the opportunity to have 1,000,000 conversations with people, and if you've been to Bold and you don't have these limiting beliefs, you're going to get the business if you believe that you're going to get the business. But you just, that's why we wanted to do this class, and that's why I had talked to Alan and John, and we plan to do this, is to make people understand, make agents understand, no matter where they were in the process, whether it was day 1 graduating from Gold Coast or 15 years in the business, that the entire MO of every agent should be to get better, no matter where they're at. If they're zeroed, they got to get better. If they're doing $50 million worth of business, there should be no ceiling. They should want to do $100 million. The goal is to get better, all right? So now we were on track before Valerie spoke, but we're now going to try and catch up. Thank you for this.
Sorry.
No, it's good. I know everything about the family now. Perfect. Okay. All right, so I had promised, and again, look, if you stick with me every 2 weeks, we're going to tackle different subjects. But today's subject is the anatomy of the real estate transaction, because I don't think that people really understand what the entire real estate transaction is. People say to me, you know, Jay, yeah, you get this listing, and they kind of, for lack of a better word, dumb it down and make it so minute that they really, if you really think about it, they have a false impression of what a real estate transaction is, which is probably the impetus as to why so many people try and get into the business, because they don't understand what's in the true A to Z concept of the listing. And you watch $1 million listing and all this crazy nonsense on TV, and you get this very false narrative of what a real estate deal is. All right. So a couple people asked me if I could chart out what a real estate deal looks like from A to Z. And so I'm going to try and do that so you guys understand the entire spectrum of the deal. All right? And then you can, when you realize what the deal is, then you'll understand what you have to do from the perspective of everything before you actually get the listing. Okay. So most of all, anatomy, you say the word anatomy, you think body, but the anatomy of it is really like, it's a million different systems that have to come together to put this real estate deal. To get a person to list with you, to go through the deal, to get it closed, there's so many things that have to come together, and it literally can be put on a timeline. But if you want to understand the gravity of trying to get a deal done and what it takes when you say, hey, I have 2 listings and I want to go to 3 listings, or I have 0 listings and I want to get a listing, and I'm new to the business, and what do I have to do? Okay? Here's in a abridged version, and believe me, this could go on for days, but I'm going to drill it down in like 20 minutes. And this is going to be made available on YouTube, and you can have the slides and all that, and you can have a million questions after, and you're welcome to email me or text me, and I'll answer anything you want. And I have the Get Real Facebook group, closed Facebook group, so if you want to join that, it's all going to be made available on that, YouTube, whatever. All right. Okay, so anybody want to guess on how to begin a real estate deal? Take a stab, somebody.
Regenerate. You gotta find it first.
There it is. All right. So I know this gets so redundant that everybody says, Jay, all you talk about is scripts and role play. Before it was renamed group coaching, but this is. You have to do this. Does anybody, and remember, this class is called Get Real for a reason. Go ahead and challenge me. Go ahead and give me your full, I don't think you're right. Is there anybody that doesn't agree that group coaching is, or understanding how to talk to somebody is vital? Because if you do, just tell me. I want to have a conversation around it so I can make you understand why it's the most important thing. Even if you guys say, I don't like coming to group coaching and John's terrible at this, or whatever you're going to say, if you don't know how to talk to somebody, you cannot be in the business. Period. End. And I'm not saying that you guys should get out of the business. I have no idea whether you guys can have great conversations or not. I'm just saying that conversations are the building blocks to getting business. You can have a conversation anywhere. On a tennis court, on the golf course, at a bar, anywhere. If you don't know how to talk to somebody, you're not getting the business. All right? So I would encourage everybody to, even if you don't want to go to group coaching, to form your own group, to have scripts, to talk to each other, to push yourselves to deal with objections, to be able to not fumble over any conversation, because that's going to be the game changer between you and any other agent you're going up against, is whether or not you can have a conversation, whether or not you're likable, whether or not you're relatable. All those things factor into whether you're going to be successful.
And can we just say, no matter how long you've been in the business, you still find sometimes that you do stumble.
Yeah.
You don't know what to say.
Yep.
And then that's just a reminder, well, shit, I need to go to group coaching, or I need to handle that objection better.
Or like I said before, it's a win because you're never going to make that mistake again. I've walked out of plenty of conversations where I'm like, I can't believe I said that, or there's no way I'm getting this deal because I 100% shouldn't have said that, or I should have just kept my mouth shut or something. But whatever, chalk it up to a learning experience, okay? So, and remember, this is how to get a real estate deal. This is not real estate 101. This is everything I'm listing here is integral to getting a listing. You have to time block, okay? I time block every day. Every day, even on the weekends, I time block. And I'm not saying time block work. I'm saying time block. Like, if you've ever seen Diana Kokoska's calendar, it's incredible. She has like days where she's off. Like, I'm not doing anything real estate related. I'm going to the gym. I'm going to hang out with my family. But she is very intentional about how she time blocks. Now, in this particular snippet, just assume that like the blue is working or the purple is working. Like, this is how you have to time block so that you are very intentional about what you're doing. If you know that you have to make X number of calls, you got to get it done. You can't make X number of calls and then not do it 3 days in a row. It doesn't work like that. So I'm not the biggest fan of you have to make 20 calls because it's hard to do, especially if you don't like the phone. I'm saying lead generate in whatever capacity you want to lead generate, but lead generate consistently. If you like door knocking, door knock every day. Don't door knock and say, wow, it was a great day. You know, I got 20 contacts. I think I'll take the next 3 days off. No. You got to use the momentum and you got to actually have it so that it looks really nice on the calendar. This is when I lead generate. 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 Not I lead generated and then that color is completely devoid on the calendar for the rest of the week. You can't do that with any consistency because then you'll run into the idea of having a few closings a year and then you won't have any others the remainder of the year because you will not have planned and you will not have been consistent and you will not have been intentional with your time. So what is lead generation? I wrote this. I think I was just feeling very sarcastic when I wrote this. You know, you have to generate leads, okay? And the reason why I put this slide up is because if you say to somebody, all right, what's integral to doing well in this business? Everybody is going to say lead generate. Everyone. What do you have to do? You have to lead generate. Okay, what is that? Is that getting on the phone, getting nobody to pick up the phone, and after 2 hours when you haven't spoke to one person? That is not lead generating. I promise you that's not lead generating. You might convince yourself it's lead generating that because you spent the hours doing it, but that is not lead generating. Lead generating is generating leads. I don't care if it takes you 5 minutes. If you could generate 5 leads in 5 minutes, chalk it up. Done. Day over.
Superstar.
Okay? But if you've ever talked to John, you know, his big thing is, I'm not stopping my day until I get one appointment, right? That's his metric. His metric is an appointment because that would actually constitute a lead for him. If your definition of a lead is simply jumping on the phone or doing whatever it is that you're supposed to do because that's what you were told to do and it doesn't warrant anything, you haven't really lead generated. You've attempted to lead generate, but you haven't done it. Okay, so I'm saying, don't just for the sake of saying it, say you lead generate. Actually generate something. You don't have to be on the phone. Okay? It doesn't have to be cold calls. It doesn't have to be expireds. It doesn't have to be for sale by owners. Schedule an appointment. I want an appointment before I got here. With a mortgage broker.
So, you hear people talk about schedule appointments. Okay, when you get an appointment, granted, I love people. I love going and having a drink or meeting for coffee, or just a conversation.
That's generating. Depends on the outcome. It doesn't have to be on the phone to be generated. I hate the phone. But you could be in the mall, walk into 20 stores, and
look, okay, so what were you going to ask me?
I kind of lost my train of thought, but in those appointments, like, our goal is to just continue to build relationships with these people?
Yes, to be authentic. Okay, and so let me just share with you what happened at the meeting today with the mortgage broker, okay? So the mortgage broker asked me for the meeting. He wants me to send him business, okay? I said to this mortgage broker, I will meet you for coffee, but this cannot be a unilateral relationship, okay? I need you to work with me. Now, I know that this mortgage broker is dealing with probably dozens of other agents. So the chances of him actually sourcing me business, right, it's not in my favor, to say the least, all right? However, I met with this person. And so here's how the conversation went. We had coffee. These conversations take 30 minutes because I'm very anti-lunch and spending hours doing this stuff. I like meeting, but they're almost like quick, is this going to work or not type of stuff. So I said to this mortgage broker, look, I'm going to do what I can to get you some business, and here's what I want in return. Obviously, it would be expected that you would take care of the clients and you would get the deals closed, and that's all. Any mortgage broker worth their salt is going to do that at this point. Here's what I want from you. Since I know pretty much that you're rarely going to source me business, but I know that your major contact base is realtors. What I want you to do is I want you to put me in front of realtors that maybe be thinking about jumping from one firm to the other. Okay, that's where he can help me. I'm going to help you, but you're going to help me. And he was like, yeah, I can do that. And then he actually got real with me and said, you know what? Chances of me getting you business are probably slim. But I speak to a lot of agents, and many of them will say to me, you know what, Mark, I'm not thrilled with my company, and then he could kind of intervene and say, you know what, I have an agent I'd love you to talk to. That's the value add for me. Okay? Now, it could be profit share, it could be recruiting somebody to my team, it could be anything. But it's value add. Okay? So now I have a guy who, instead of feeling that he has to source business for me, all he has to do is really just bring my name up in a conversation when he's talking to somebody that's basically spilling their guts about how much they hate their respective company. It's so easy to do, right? And he's going to do it because he wants business and he knows he's not going to source me business, right? So that's the conversation. It took 15 minutes. Worth the coffee? 100%. Okay, so now we're back to my favorite redundant slide. Group coaching. Now, the reason why I interjected this slide right here is because if you don't go to group coaching, you're not saying that to the mortgage broker. It never even comes up. All you do is focus on what he can do for you from a real estate agency perspective. This level of communication doesn't even work itself in. Because you're not versed enough. You're not having enough conversations.
I just wanted to add that I know someone that's, they share their contact with their mortgage broker. Like, hey, give her a call, maybe you can help her out and send her some business. And I know that, we have Supreme Lending here, and I'm happy working with them and everything, and I also keep thinking like, why am I gonna meet with them if they're not gonna send me business?
Right.
And I have someone, I have a couple people that I work with already.
Yep.
But what you just said, it's the smartest thing. Like,
Right.
Okay, now I have something.
There is a way to make it work.
Exactly.
But if you have to know how to have that conversation. And the only way you have these conversations is if you have them a million times. It's almost like working out. You go to the gym and you have a trainer and at least I would think, I've gone to trainers and you would think that it would be embedded, that you would know how to do the exercise. Trainer's not there, you're like, what the hell do I do? You could be going there for 10 years. You still don't know how to do the exercise. Going to group coaching or doing the exercise of having many conversations, even if it wasn't through group coaching, but just having the conversation with people all day long, you're going to understand how to interweave things into the conversation like I did. Otherwise, you're basically doing what most agents do, which is saying they're lead generating, but they're really not. Okay? When I have this conversation, this guy is now thinking, all I have to really do is introduce Jay to agents now. I don't have to source any business. I don't have to worry about that. God knows this guy is probably running back to his office figuring out how many agents hate what they freaking do. Okay? I'll maybe get a couple calls. I'll bring them in. I'll introduce them to John, see if they're good fits for KW. Who cares? But it's something, right? As opposed to nothing. Because we all know that the relationships with mortgage brokers are basically unilateral, at best. Very few relationships with mortgage brokers are, very even keeled.
Has it been that way here in Florida for you guys? Because when I was in Georgia, I had relationships with mortgage brokers where I could expect at least 10 deals from them. And
it's an unusual relationship.
If you have that, that's incredible.
That's really incredible.
I don't have that, but that's not to say it doesn't exist. I just personally can't speak to it.
Yeah. Okay.
Because usually the real estate agent gets the customer before the mortgage broker. For you to deliver that to somebody like Jason on the request, you would have to get somebody looking for the mortgage, and then they turn around and say, now do you know a good real estate agent? And that's kind of sort of the reverse by 95%.
So this slide I threw in there, it kind of is applicable now, but kind of the same way when I talk about lead generating, how when you're making the calls, don't just go through the motions. Try and get the lead. When you have the meeting, make it count, like what I just did this morning, okay? I could have left that meeting with his promise to send me business, but we know that wasn't going to amount to much. I got him really dialed in on what I needed, and in my mind, it was a very good meeting where most agents that would meet with a mortgage broker, it's just for the sake of having coffee. It's a lot of nonsense. It's a lot of talk about rates. It's basically just fluff. This we really drilled down and figured out, this is how I'm going to help you, and this is what I need in return. Very, very direct. Tactful, but direct. Where is F? Oh, okay. Okay. I lost my train of thought. I'm going to get to Z. Okay, so let's assume now that you actually have been lead generating. You got an appointment, right? You're going to be very intentional about that appointment. Very intentional about the appointment because the reason why you're going to be very intentional about the appointment, not desperate, intentional. The reason why you're going to be very intentional about the appointment is because you don't get a lot of them. Okay? You can't look at the return on how many calls it takes to get somebody to talk to you. Okay? How many people do you talk to finally get the appointment? if you get an appointment, that's the goal, okay? You have to get it signed, all right? Because it's too rare if you're really getting these leads. Once you're getting lots of leads and you're converting and your conversion rate goes up, but the intentionality starts not here, okay? If you're just only intentional when you're at the listing, it comes off as too desperate, okay? When you're intentional the whole way through, intentional on the phone call, intentional at the meeting, intentional, then it's the same. The conversation's the same. You've always been this intentional. It's not you get there and be like, please sign. You have to no. They're going to read right through that and it's not going to work out. But if you've been intentional the whole time, from the first time you picked up the phone and called them, I can help you, this is what I can do for you, this is what I've done, this is what I'll provide, and then that you've had that dialogue, consistent dialogue with them the whole time, this doesn't come down as intentional. We've had those conversations. Now we just got to finish it up. You know, let's get it signed. Okay, and so here's what happens. Now remember, this is the anatomy of listing property, okay? We've done everything. We're at step G, just in this little unabridged version. We haven't even got the listing, all right? This is the heavy lifting though, all right? Now you get it signed. Now for those of you that don't have a lot of listings or any listings, this is important, okay? Act like you know what you're doing. You just walked out with a listing, and don't freak out. All right? Have a moment. It's all good. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. All that heavy lifting. Here it is. Don't blow it now. Okay? All right. Now, but remember what I said before about Bill Belichick and everything else, right? Short-lived celebration. You could celebrate for 5 seconds. We're not going to get crazy. You got your listing. Great. You got a listing. Just like when you get rejected on the phone, you don't beat yourself up. You don't kill yourself. You don't kill yourself. You don't get down on yourself. The same way that you're going to treat a success, you're going to treat a failure. You can't beat yourself up to the nth degree because it's just too negative. It's too toxic. All right? So you celebrate quick, you forget quick. Quick, short memory on failures. All right? All right. Now, here's what happens. You get the listing. Things to consider. Remember, you guys can write this down or not. I'm making it all available for you. MLS, photography, listing, showing instructions, marketing, print, online. The list goes on, and it can be like almost disarming, okay? How you're going to talk to the client to schedule the showings, providing feedback, a million things that you're probably not thinking about. But this is what happens the minute they sign, okay? It's not like, oh, they signed, great. Now you have a million things to consider, okay? So now you have the listing. You went through all this. You hired the photographer. You put it in the MLS. You figured out what the game plan is. You know how you're going to market the property. All right? You know how you're going to talk to the client, what you're going to do, how you're going to set up the showings, how you're going to provide feedback to the client, what that method is, okay? Now, once it's up, then the fun begins, okay? So now you're live on the MLS and whatever else you promised this seller. So then there's a couple of scenarios, right? What are the scenarios? Anyone? What could happen?
Get an offer.
Okay.
Multiple offers.
All right. I love the positivity. What else could happen? Okay. And I'm talking from experience, okay? Because this is what happens when you have a lot of high-priced listings and there's a shift. The phone does not ring, okay? Now, when the phone doesn't ring, Group coaching is key because now your entire day, besides lead generating for the newer business, because you're fearful that this business is going to leave, is talking to the client. Okay? You have to explain why there's no action, and you have to manage expectations for hours. You might as well just go get a psych degree. Okay? Because that's what it is. So I'm giving you real scenarios, not I love Jay's multiple offer scenario. That would be fantastic. But that scenario, while it happens, it doesn't happen any more than this happens, this no action scenario. All right? So group coaching can help you deal with what you're going to say to the client during the transaction, not just getting the listing, during it. Okay. Another scenario is you're showing it, but no offers. Of course, M is the same moronic thing. Defer to every slide that mentions group coaching. Because now you have to explain to the client why you're showing it 1,000,000 times and nobody's made an offer. Very fun conversation. I mean, can you see why knowing how to talk about all this and going to group coaching and having these conversations would help you in your daily life with this when you ultimately are at the level where you want to be at and you're juggling 10 to 20 to 30 listings? Can you imagine? I have 15 listings, all right? There's not a whole ton of action. There's some, but there's not a lot. So when there is not a lot, I'm being very proactive with these clients, explaining to them why there are no offers, why if we get an offer, it's such a low ball offer. These conversations I have every single day, okay? It's just another conversation. You guys are looking at group coaching and all these things at Bold as like how to get clients. You also have to look at the group coaching and the dialogue and the conversation and the tonality and everything else when you have the client, because you got to keep the client and you got to manage the client. And you got to make sure that he doesn't want to leave and he doesn't want to find somebody else. And he doesn't want to threaten you and say, you know what, I can't believe I went this route. I had 3 other agents that were vying for the listing and you promised me this, and this, and this. And, here we are and I've shown the house 50 times and I haven't received one offer. You got to have an answer for him. You have to have an answer. It may not be a great answer, but it has to be an answer. You can't just sit there and be tone deaf and radio silent. Okay, now let's go back to the positivity. Jay Everett style.
Multiple.
All right. Not multiple, but we got one. All right. Offer received. All right. Again, the redundancy is in. Group coaching. Because now we have to negotiate it. Now you have to know how to talk to the agent. Okay? It's all about talking. If you don't know how to talk, I don't say talk for the sake of how do you talk to a lead that you just got on the phone that you dialed up from Red X. I'm talking about talking to anyone. The group coaching is how to talk to anyone. Prospect, client, past client. I can't reiterate it enough because I spend the majority of my day talking to clients, prospects, buyers, sellers, past clients, whatever. You have to have an answer for everybody. You can falter, but you got to quickly recover. Okay, so assuming that you know how to have the conversation, you've had the conversation, you've done your back and forth with the client or the agent representing the client, okay? All right, we're there. Sale pending. Still very much entrenched with the deal, all right? Because we're only at step O. Back to things to consider, okay? Now remember, this all started with not even knowing who the prospect was. This is how we got to this. Lead generating, and now we've gotten an offer. It's been accepted. Now we're at things to consider. inspection, appraisal, financing provisions, cash, mortgage, needs to procure proof of funds, deposits, mortgage lender contact, closing agent, title issues, buyer, seller remorse, all that stuff you're going to have to factor in and deal with to get this thing closed. All right? And each one of those, every single one of those question marks is a conversation. Okay? I would go into it in more detail if they didn't want to kick me out of the room, but remember, you're going to have to deal with the inspection. How to talk to them about, hey, giving a credit, not giving a credit, killing the deal over $300. You know, all this nonsense that goes on. The appraisal. How you're going to sweet talk an appraiser. How you're going to provide him with every freaking piece of data to make sure that he comes remotely close to the price. Financing provisions. Cash, you know, dealing with how to have a conversation with mortgage brokers. Who the closing agent is, where the money gets escrowed. Every little thing becomes a nuance in this business, okay, where a conversation it needs to be entered into. After you have all those conversations, there's more conversations, addendums, credits, workouts, re-inspections from an inspection that, you know, yielded a GFI outlet that didn't work, 40 cents to fix, but this guy wants to have the entire house re-inspected. Anything that could possibly happen is going to happen. And the only way to deal with it is to know how to navigate it through conversation where you kind of hold your tongue, you know what you're going to say, you want to say something else, but you don't because you want the deal to go through. And you just play it out and make sure everybody plays nice in the sandbox together. Okay?
I'm about to go through that at 4 o'clock. HA appraisal.
Now we're almost home because you have successfully navigated through all A through, what is it?
Z.
Q. We're almost home though. Almost home. We're at R in my crazy alphabet. All right, we're getting to the good stuff. We're getting to the J. Everett stuff. All right, closing statements, commissions. Yes, everything with a C.
Everyone's happy there. They're getting drunk.
Right. There are worse things. Now, there's two things that happen. You either get to this, or you get to this. Now, when you get to this, it's often a result of this, where you have everybody threatening everybody. I don't know how many times you guys have been involved with this nonsense, okay? So you have, and this, I just really need to reiterate this so you understand how fragile these deals are. Everything is so fragile when it comes to a buyer or seller that literally in 3 minutes, it could go from this to absolutely not, deal dead. Okay? Just based on emotion alone. And this could be literally the client saying, under no circumstances will I sign at the closing table. That kind of emotion. Remember, everything you did up until the letter U on my crazy graph could be perfect. And the guy could still go berserk at the closing and say, I am not signing. Okay? And this has happened to me. Okay? It usually happens in very strange circumstances. Divorce, all kinds of wacky nonsense. Where it's spite alone. I'm not signing this because she would benefit. It has nothing to do with the contract. Buyers have already moved, basically. The sellers moved out. The buyers got the truck waiting at the house. And the seller is just not happening. Kill me. They're sitting at the closing table. You've already basically deposited your check. Okay?
Now you're willing to give it back.
And now you're thinking like self, what do I have to do to get a deal closed? Right? it's basically that type of situation. Now, here's the thing. There are situations where that will be the outcome, where you will take it all the way to you and it won't go through. Now,
I'm in that now.
when you're in that, here's the important part of it. It matters much less. It always matters. You're always going to be pissed. But it matters much less if you have 10 deals. Okay? It matters a whole hell of a lot if you have one deal going. If you have one deal going, it's your whole freaking world. If you have 10 deals going, or 10 listings going, or action on other things, it's 10%. Okay? And you have to treat this the same way as the success. You have to have a very short memory when it comes to this stuff. Very short. Because the bottom line is that you can say this a million times, and you know this is true, but nobody follows it. Okay? This is it right here. You can't control that. You cannot control what some lunatic does at a closing table. Okay? I've done this for so long, and I have literally seen stuff that would make your head spin. Okay? But you gotta get over it. And the only way to really get over it is to get tons of listings where it doesn't matter. Okay? If you have one listing and you're basing your whole freaking life on the one listing, it's like you're gonna be literally a basket case. If you have 20, because your mindset is, I have to be lead generating and I have to just be vicious about getting listing after listing after listing, because you're fearful that they're going to be taken away from you or they're not going to close, so you need more and more and more and more. This stuff's not going to even matter. This is going to be like you're going to laugh. I promise you, if you have 20 listings, it's going to hurt for 5 seconds, and then you're going to laugh it off and just think everybody's crazy. That's what's going to happen. But what happens is if you only have one listing, you come in here and you are upset, spiteful. Your tone changes. Now that tonality and the fact that you're so pissed off is conveyed in every conversation you have with new prospects, because you're not dealing from contribution now. You're dealing from scarcity and desperation. All right, and when you deal like that, everybody can see right through it. Now, I come in here, I just had a deal go completely sideways. Now, if that was my only deal, I'd be like, I cannot believe that I put so much into that, and this is what I got. But if I have 5 other things going, I can put it into perspective. The thing that goes on with most agents is that they get so into the idea of what they're doing now, they forget about the pipeline. I'm more concerned about the pipeline. There are many times when I go on Facebook, or that you'll see me talking on Facebook or whatever, social media or whatever, where I'll say, look, I didn't have this month, okay? That doesn't mean I'm down. That means I'm just working on future. I got things going, okay? Not every month is going to pan out. I could have 30 listings. If nobody wants to buy any of them, I'm not closing anything. But I'm working on other things, because in my world, I know that even in a shift, 60 or 70% of the stuff is going to eventually close. So my job changes. Get more listings and keep these sellers happy enough to hang with me until they close. That's the MO. That's the conversation. How do I extend the listing? How do I lower the listing price? How do I have these conversations? How do I drill down and make sure that they understand where the market is? New conversations. Group coaching conversations, okay? So, what have we learned? Group coaching, it's key. That the laundry list is long and nonstop. I mean, nonstop. I abridged this version to kind of help you figure out what I look at in the spectrum of listing A to Z, and how most of the heavy lifting is before you even get the listing. The lead generating and the talking to clients and the making sure they know what you do. That 3 is probably the most important thing. You can't control the outcome, which is why you have to get more listings. Even pending sales die. Even, that's why you see back on the market, because they're dead. They don't appraise, the inspection reveals new roof needed, buyers go crazy, seller decides not to sell, buyer decides not to buy, mortgage get rejected because the guy loses his job, whatever. There's a million scenarios. The thing is that if you don't have a ton of business, you're going to get freaked out by one scenario that you couldn't control. That's going to be the decision maker in why you're not a good agent, something that didn't happen in your control. Listen, man, the guy couldn't get a mortgage. There's nothing I could do about it. Move on. Another listing, another issue, okay? What you're in control of is your habits, what you do every day, your routine, your time blocking, your lead generation. If you stick to number 4, if you do nothing else in this business and stick to number 4, you'll be on the top 20 every month. But you have to do it. So, and I said that I know that Scott brought this up about do buyers count? Of course buyers count. I'm just a big proponent that the listing inventory is the key. Okay? You have to have inventory. You have to control market share. In the same way that you cannot control what somebody does at a closing table, you can't control what your buyers do. I don't care what things they've signed. Okay? If the buyer signs something and they go in and they walk into new construction and sign it, bye-bye. You're out. Okay? Can you fight it? Of course you can fight it. But it doesn't mean anything. Okay? Buyers, whether it's intentional or not, will screw you out of everything. Okay? And they don't even mean it because they don't know. They don't know if they walk into new construction and you're not with them, that means that you're not part of the deal. They have no concept of that. They're not realtors. They don't know what the rules are. They just know that they saw a sign, this community looked interesting, I want to go in, and all of a sudden they want to move there. You just didn't happen to be there, even though you took them around 50 other times. Believe me, that happens every single day, which is why I am more inclined to want to be a listing agent. Because when I'm the listing agent, it doesn't matter who shows it, when they show it, if I didn't go. I'm the listing agent. They have signed an agreement with me. If this goes under contract within this amount of time, no matter what, you're getting paid. Contractually, get listings. Okay, if you get listings, you're in control. That's the one thing you can control. All right? So I'm sorry this went long. If you have any questions, ask away. And then I will make this whole thing available to you guys on YouTube or whatever. And again, if you want to be part of the group, chime in. If you don't want to be part of the group, if you never want to come back to the class, no problem. I get it. Valerie, I promise you can talk as long as you want the next class. Anybody have anything? Anybody? Any comments, questions?
So for someone like yourself, what does lead generation look like? Are you more into circle prospecting or?
That's a great question. I don't call for sale by owners. I don't call expireds. I do make a lot of calls, but I make calls to my network. And they're informal calls. They're not calls to list. They're calls to the network to ask who they know that is thinking about doing stuff and to put me in touch with those people. So they're conversations where I'm very intentional. Who's moving here? Who's moving there? Can you put me in touch with that person? Can you introduce me to them? Whether it be on social media, LinkedIn, an email where we're both copied, something. I'm always trying to spurn conversations, and part of my lead generation is always reaching out to see how I can help somebody else. What can I do for you? Because that puts me in a position to refer. Okay? And when you put yourself in a position to refer, you create an obligation. All right? So I always will call people and I'll say, what do you need? Oh, you know what? I could really use some roofing business. Okay, you know what? Then I'm a realtor. I know plenty of people that have roofing issues. Let me introduce you to this guy. And then I'll hook him up. And then I'll follow up with both Now I got a roofer that I've referred business to and a person that I've helped. And that conversation leads to me being in the conversation all the time. That's what I try and do every day. I try and make sure that my name is being talked about in any capacity. Oh yeah. Who referred you the roofer? Jake Abbott. No, that guy sucks. I don't care what they say. I just want my name around. Okay? Oh, you know what? Even if they come back and say, you know what, Jay, that roofer, no good. Fine. You know what? I really apologize. That's great information. It doesn't matter. Okay? You want to get your name out there. Okay? If you the best compliment that you can get in the business, aside from your client, is that when you run into people and they go, you know what, I've heard your name around. You know? I heard you're rocking and rolling, you're doing this and that. Even if it's true or not true. If they're hearing stuff, you're doing your job. All right? So that's how I do it. It's not your typical way. It's certainly tough when you're a new agent. But what I try to do is come from contribution, which is a 7 levels thing, and I'll always be like, how can I help you? You know, that when I spoke to this mortgage broker today, he's like, you know, a lot of people are asking me for kickbacks, and I'm like, what? Are you kidding? I don't want any kickbacks. I want nothing. I want you to introduce me to some agents. All right? If I can help you, I'm going to send you business. But you would be surprised what people want. That's a scarcity thing. That's a desperation thing. I'm only going to do business with you if you give me this. I'm not into that. There you go, man. If I can do something to help you, and that leads to me having a conversation with 2 or 3 people, which if there's anything that I'm good at, it's follow-up. Okay? So like for instance, you said, what do I do? Okay, if I refer you to Enrique and I say, listen, Enrique's a great roofer. You need your roof done? I want you to speak to him. He did a roof 3 months ago and it was fantastic. I don't leave that conversation. I'll email Enrique and I'll email you and I'll introduce you guys via email. Then I'll follow up with Enrique. Hey, did Carlos call you? Then I'll call you and I'll say, did Enrique call you? I'm going to have like 9 different conversations with you because I want to make sure that my name is consistently interjected in that conversation so that you know that I referred you to the business and you know that I got you the roofer. Okay? And that follow-up is what's going to get you business. The problem is that when people decide that they want to make a referral, they leave it alone. If I said, hey, listen, I would just go with Enrique. He's a great roofer. And then you never follow up with that person, they'll just forget who referred it to him. If you followed up with them 600 times, Jay, I got the roofer, yeah. He was at my house. Thanks for following up. He fixed my roof 6 years ago. Whatever. Okay? I'm still following up with them. I don't care. You know, I just want to make sure that I'm always the one that's kind of in the middle of forcing business. If you can be that person, it helps your cause because you're basically interjecting yourself as in the real estate trade. I have lots of people in the real estate trade. Like I have on my command in the database, people that are just in the real estate trade. Anybody. So that if somebody calls me and says, Jay, I have a leak, I have somebody. Not that it's so vital that you're going to do business with the person, but it could be vital to somebody else. The handyman might not be buying a $4 million house, but the guy's one of my closest friends, man. He helps everybody. All right? I mean, that guy is integral if your power goes out at 3 a.m. Integral. You know how happy somebody's going to be if you hook them up with somebody that comes out to their house at 2 a.m. and, fixes something that nobody was going to fix for 4 days? That's very, very powerful. If you can do it. You just have to be that person that doesn't. If you have those kind of contacts. I have those kind of contacts. So I'm not at the point in my career where I'm calling people and saying, I noticed your house was just expired. I don't do that anymore. I'll be very candid with you. But I used to. I used to go about it and do it very aggressively. You've you noticed your house was expired, it's been on the market, and then they'll give me some song and dance. You're the 99th realtor that's called me today. And when I come out with my sarcastic, well, we don't have to have any more call you. Just let's do this right now. Whatever I said, very sarcastic, very just the way I am here. But listen, I've done all that. It works if you're intentional about it, but you have to. The reason why I was able to be successful even when I did that stuff is from the ability to have conversations that resonate with people. If you can get somebody to laugh, you're in, man. You're in. Most people pick up the phone and they're ready to kill you. All right? You've been the 9,000th person that's called them. Believe me. If you can get them to laugh for 2 seconds, they'll let their guard down. And then you can actually have a real conversation with the person. Listen, I know 1 million people called you. The only reason I called was because I really think I could actually help you. I've done a number of deals in your community, and I'd love to just sit down with you for 10 minutes, or even if you don't even have the time, I'd love to get your email, permission to email you. I'd love to email you a listing presentation of what I can do. You can do your own due diligence on me and figure out if we're a fit. And then if you think we're a fit, I'm happy to come to your house at your convenience and we can sit down and talk. Who's going to say no to that? If you can get that far in the conversation. Problem is most people can't get that far. Most people go, hey, and they're click. That's most people's conversation. But you got to be able to get to that conversation. If you can get to the conversation, if you can get them to let their guard down and you can get them to yes, then you can actually have a shot with the person. Most people can't get to yes. The truth of the matter is that most people that relist, not with their same agent, but with the person that continues to call, like the for sale by owner or the expired, it's not because they drilled down and had a real conversation. It's because the client just got so sick of it. He just listed with, finally they were at their wit's end and they go, you won, you called me at the exact time that I'm so sick of this that I'm listing with you. Not because they like you.
I don't want to hear from anyone like
right.
that.
Because I can't do this anymore. Do you know that my clients, when you list a $3, $4, $5 million house, okay, the biggest conversation that we have with the client is how long it's going to take to actually sell. Because it's not like a $300,000 house that goes under contract in 2 seconds. It takes a very wealthy person to take down a $5 million house, okay? And so what the conversation is that you're basically saying to the person, they're saying to me, Jay, I need you to get this done in 6 months. And I'm like, that sounds fantastic. If I could get every $5 million listing sold in 6 months, there would be a stratosphere, there'd be a freaking plaque of me, okay? But that's not the way it works, because the way this works is that there's, once you cross that $3 million plateau, it can take years to sell it. It's saturated inventory, and there's only a finite number of buyers that can actually take it down. Okay, so what ends up happening is that's the conversation that I'm having with these people. And then the people say to me, okay, you know what, Jay? I realize that, and I agree with you, and I thank you for explaining that to me, and I think we're going to have a great relationship, and I plan on getting this sold with you. But just as a comfort, let's just list it for 6 months on the agreement. And then if everything's going well, I'll just keep re-extending it. Okay, so that's what we do. You know what? I'm not going to fight you on this. This is the price I want it at. You understand it's going to take longer. If you really want it at 6 months, we'll go at 6 months. 5 months, 25 days comes up. I say, listen, we had this conversation. We've been showing it, decent action, but we need to extend it. It's going to take a little longer. Yeah, you know what, Jay? Yep, I understand what you're saying. But you know what I think would be great? I think what would be great is if I just let it expire, because then I know we can refresh and we'll put it back on the market. I said, you know what? Whatever you want to do, let's let it expire. Okay. Then it goes to the 30th day. It expires. Okay. An hour after it expires, I get a phone call. Jay, put the fucking listing back on the market right now, okay? People are calling my kids. I mean, it's incredible, the resourcefulness. Can you imagine if you, instead of being so resourceful to try and find somebody's son who's in 6th grade, you actually drilled down and got intentional about lead generating? It's amazing what somebody will do to get to a listing, but they won't lead generate consistently. I mean, these people were like, how do they know my 9-year-old's phone number that he's only allowed to use for emergency? Like that's what we're talking about.
Why does a 9-year-old have a cell phone?
Whatever it is, man. I don't ask those questions. But what I'm saying is that realtors go that deep when they're trying to do this. If you just got intentional about your daily workup and what you got to do, you wouldn't have to do that. You would just have to focus on the conversation and make sure that you get this person to a feeling where they're so comfortable they actually want to have a normal conversation, a real conversation with you. If you could get to that instead of the robotic conversation that you have because you're not versed enough in having a real conversation, you'll be fine. But you got to do that. You got to do it. You got to have conversations every single day with every type of person. With the greeters, with the baristas, with every single person is a prospect. Every single person. Every single person. Don't exclude anyone. You have no idea who's who. I've had CEOs with hundreds of millions of dollars drive up, and if you were judging them, you would be like, what? And then you figure out they rented the car. You know, you can't go there. Don't go there. Don't assume anything. Just do your thing, stay focused, time block, lead generate with intentionality, get listings, and you'll be done. You'll be rolling. But if you don't do that, then you see what goes on, and you will be part of the 80%. And the 80% of the realtors that claim to do it, but really don't. They don't genuinely do it. That's why I talk about on the social media post the idea about being authentic, And I think it bothered a couple people because I was calling a couple people out. You have to be authentic, okay? True to yourself. Are you really doing this, or you say you're doing it? If anybody read the post, I was basically made a comment about how when you go to Bold, somebody will say, how many hours did you lead generate? 20. How many contacts did you make? 115. Okay, how many listings did you get? 0. How many buyers did you get? 0. It's impossible. That is impossible. That is a statistical impossibility unless you are speaking another language. Okay?
You're insulting everybody.
What? Right. I guess, from that standpoint, it might not be a statistical impossibility. But even on a 1% return, that would be one lead. So do you see how it doesn't jive? So I believe in my heart of hearts that when people go to Bold, they have every intention of doing the right thing, but I don't think they report in line with what they're really doing. Okay? I'd rather have somebody make 4 phone calls and say, you know what, I really learned something. I didn't really get to my 20, but I called 4 people. Because what calling 4 people will do is it will give you confidence to make 5 phone calls the next day. Okay? And then 6. And then you'll be getting better at it and better at it and better at it. And then soon it will morph into 20. It might even morph into more. Most people give up because they look at it and they're like, I didn't make the 20 phone calls, I failed. Make 1.
Might morph into something that actually puts some business in your pipeline.
Yeah. So, all I'm saying is, look, I appreciate you guys spending the day with me. We'll do it again in 2 weeks. Hopefully it helped. The idea is to get a little better. This does not have to be a 180. It just has to really put you on a path to knowing where you got to get to so that you're a little bit better the next time we meet in 2 weeks. If you progress, okay, and we've met 26 times over a year, can you imagine where you'd be after a year? Okay? Believe me, it works. Just do a little bit of it. All right? Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Jason.
All right? Take care, guys.
Thank you.
So